This is Ms. Hall, and I will be doing your lesson today on statistical measures. Today we start a new unit on data and statistics, so we will be collecting data and then taking that data and measuring it and learning what these numbers mean for us. So first of all, let's start with that word, statistics. What does it mean? Dealing with collecting and organizing and interpreting pieces of data or information that we are gathering. Now, when we gather this information, we call this a statistical question. But it must be asked, what is a good statistical question? So let's do some examples. So we talk about which situation when we ask questions, whether it yields variability or not. For a question to yield variability is a good thing. You want your statistical questions to yield variability, meaning you want multiple answers to these questions, because that will give you the good data that you need to analyze. So here are some examples. How much do cats weigh? This is a good question because all cats weigh something different. We will get multiple answers. This question yields variability. There are multiple answers to this question. This is a good statistical question. How far is your house from school? All right, this one is not a good question because I got very specific in this question and I asked you about your home. I didn't ask you about most homes or my home. I asked about your home. And unless you're moving every single day, your home is only a single digit or a single number from school. So this is not a good statistical question. It does not yield variability. How much will people usually pay for a new car? Oh, this is a good one. This happens every day. When you go and buy a new car, there's a sticker price on that window. That is a negotiable price. It's like the starting point. So depending on how good of a negotiator you are, depends on what you pay for that car. So this is a very good statistical question. It yields lots of variability because it's all based on what a good negotiator you are as to what you paid for that car. How many students were in the lunch line at 12:30? Now look how specific I got on that question. I said how many students were in the lunch line at 12:30. Not between 12:15 and 12:30 or between 12:25 and 12:35. It is 12:30 is what I'm asking about. Well, that is a specific number of students that were in line at that time. So this is not a good statistical question. It will not yield variability. Okay. So once we have our good statistical question and we have gathered our data, then we want to measure our data. And we use tools called measure of center. So measures of center are a single number, and this single number describes our data that we have collected. We can describe this data using the terms of mean, median, and mode. These are three different measures of center. So let's start by talking about the mean, or the average of our data set. It's considered to be the balance point. So we find this by taking our data and adding it up. And then we're going to divide that sum by the number of data points. Here's my example. I've collected high temperatures for the week. So each one of these dots, I don't know if you're familiar with a dot plot, but let's make ourselves a note. Each dot represents a number or occurrence. Okay, so that means I had 2 at 45, 1 at 47, 1 at 49, 1 at 50, and 1 at 52. So each dot is an occurrence. That's very important to remember on a dot plot. So now I have taken those occurrences, I've written them down, and I'm adding them together to get my sum. I will divide them by the number of occurrences. So when I count up my occurrences, I have 6 of them. I have 6 pieces of data. That is what I will be dividing by. So adding these up, 288 divided by 6 is 48. Or I can say that the high temperatures can be summarized using the mean with a single number of 48 degrees. So I'm saying the average temperature for that week was 48 degrees. Okay, our next measure of center is called our median. The median represents the middle of a set of data. And this isn't just a set of data. Remember, it's ordered. So we are going to order our set of data. We will order it from least to greatest. We're going to determine the middle of this set of data, which is what median means, is middle, by crossing off values from each end. Now, if we end up having a set of data to where all we have is an even set of data values, then what we're going to do is we're going to find the mean or middle or average of those data values. And I'll give you an example of that. All right, a coach records the distances that some cross-country team members ran last week. We're going to find the median. So here are the distances that they ran. I have already put them in order from least to greatest. This part is very critical that you do this part first. Your data set needs to automatically be put in order from least to greatest. Once I put it in order from least to greatest, I want to find the median. So I'm going to start crossing off from side to side until I get to my middle number. And I find 7 is my median or my middle. Okay, so this being the middle, you will see that there is an equal number of values over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's an equal number of data values over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my middle or my median. Okay, so one thing to make note at this point, you will not always have an odd number of data values. If you end up having an even number of data values, then what you're going to do is you're going to find the middle or the average. So meaning you would, for example, if 6 and 7 were my middle, I would add 6 and 7 up and realize that's 13. And then I would do 13 divided by 2. And that would end up being my middle or my average. All right, our last measure of center is called our mode. The mode is the number that occurs most often in a set of data values. It has the most frequency. You will see this number more than any other number. Now, you can have more than one mode, or you can honestly have no mode at all. That is possible, so don't let that shock you. So let's look at my example here. Here I have a table of students running laps at Collins Intermediate. They went around that track in the back. So Britt ran 35 laps, Margie ran 33, Jose ran 33, Amelia ran 32, and Aldo ran 30. So first I want to find my mean. So what I did was I added up my data values, the 35, 33, 33, 32, and my 30, and I get 163. I take 163 and I divide it by 5 because that's how many numbers I had. I had 5 pieces of data. When I do that long division, I get 32.6. That is my mean. Now I want to find my median, which is my middle. So I took this data and I put it in order from least to greatest. And I'm going to do just like we did earlier, and I'm going to cross off from side to side. And I find my middle to be 33. So that is my median. Now I look at my set of data, and I'm going to look and see which one is occurring most often. And I see that I have 33 and 33 on here twice. No other numbers are repeated on here, but 33 is. So 33 is my mode. Alright, this last bit I have for you on our notes today is very important. And in fact, let me see if Miss Hall can get this enlarged a little for you. Ooh, let's really look at this. This will help you on your test tremendously. We want to memorize this area. So your question must be right now is, when I have all this data, I've gathered all this data, and we ask you a question on the test, how are you going to know whether to use your mean, median, or mode? So here are some good tips. We're going to use our mean when the data that we have gathered has no extreme values. You will learn about what extreme values are a little bit more later in our lessons. But no extreme values, we just have data that all just seems to be pretty all close to each other. We're going to use our mean. Median. The data have extreme values. So when we have extreme values, that means when I've collected my data, I have some number that lies way out here that has nothing in common with these numbers. That's going to be an extreme value. Then I want to use my median. Okay, so if there's no big gaps in the middle of this data, which you can see like this data right here, all these numbers, they're relatively close to each other. There's no gaps in those numbers. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say big gaps. So if we have extreme value, then we're going to use our median. And now our mode. When we have data that has many repeated numbers, and on this one I only had one repeated number, but if I had multiple repeated numbers, then using my mode would be a good idea to use to get my best measure of center. So just memorize these terms, memorize when it's appropriate to use them when you're collecting your data, and that will help you know what to use when you are measuring your centers of data, your mean, median, and your mode. That's it for today. Let's move on to practice.